Iran attack on Israel's Dimona nuclear site. Warning: this is not just another war story. This is a scenario that could change the world overnight. If a nuclear site like Dimona is ever successfully struck, the consequences would not stay within borders. They would spread through air, land, and water, affecting millions in ways most people aren't prepared to understand. We're talking about radiation exposure, mass evacuations, long-term environmental damage, and a crisis that could last generations. One strike could turn entire regions unlivable, contaminate food and water supplies, and trigger panic far beyond the Middle East. But the danger doesn't stop there. Such an attack could push nations toward retaliation at a scale the world has spent decades trying to avoid. What begins as a single strike could escalate into something far more devastating, something global. This is not fear, it's reality. And what happens next could affect us all. Welcome to African Stories by Frank Asada. Where are you watching from? Before we dive into the Iran attack on Israel's Dimona nuclear site, we encourage you to rate the video and tell us in the comments below where you are watching from. Like, share, and subscribe so that you will be the first to be notified of our next video coming up. It's important to clarify something critical. There is no confirmed evidence that Iran successfully struck and destroyed Israel's Dimona nuclear facility. What has happened? Iran has launched missile attacks that hit areas near Dimona, and it has explicitly threatened to target the nuclear site. Some missiles have penetrated Israeli defenses and landed in the Dimona region, raising concern. But the nuclear facility itself has not been confirmed destroyed. So the following is a realistic and intelligent scenario narrative based on verified fact about the site, known military capabilities, reported strikes near Dimona, expert analysis of how such an attack could unfold, the consequences to both human and the environment if Iran succeed in attacking the site. A successful attack on a nuclear facility like Dimona could have serious consequences for both human populations and the environment, depending on the level of damage to the reactor or surrounding systems. In the immediate aftermath, people living within a wide radius could face acute risks, including exposure to radiation, injuries from explosions, and the need for rapid evacuation. Some analyses suggest that tens or even hundreds of thousands of people might need to be evacuated within a large zone around the site due to potential radiation exposure. High levels of radiation could cause acute radiation sickness, leading to symptoms such as nausea, burns, organ failure, and in severe cases, death within weeks. Hospitals and emergency services would likely be overwhelmed, creating a major humanitarian crisis. Environmentally, the consequences could extend far beyond the immediate area. A damaged reactor could release radioactive materials into the air, soil, and groundwater, potentially spreading across borders depending on wind patterns. Contamination could affect agriculture, water supplies, and ecosystems for years or even decades. Radioactive particles can accumulate in plants, animals, and marine life, increasing long-term cancer risks and making land unsafe for habitation or farming. Overall, such an event would not only be a regional disaster, but could also have lasting global environmental and public health implications. What you need to know about the nuclear site. The Shimon Peres Negev Nuclear Research Center, commonly known as the Dimona nuclear site, is located deep within the arid landscape of Israel's Negev Desert, far from major population centers. Constructed in strict secrecy during the late 1950s and early 1960s, the facility emerged at a time when regional tensions and existential threats shaped Israel's long-term security strategy. Widely regarded by international analysts as the cornerstone of Israel's undeclared nuclear capabilities, Dimona is believed to house a reactor capable of producing weapons-grade plutonium. Although Israel maintains a long-standing policy of nuclear ambiguity, neither confirming nor denying possession of nuclear weapons, intelligence agencies and nuclear experts across the world consistently point to Dimona as the central hub of a strategic deterrent program. The site is heavily fortified, with multiple layers of security, restricted airspace, and advanced surveillance systems. Its remote desert location is not accidental. It minimizes civilian risk in the unlikely event of an accident, while also enhancing operational secrecy, making Dimona one of the most sensitive and closely guarded facilities in the region. Dimona is a complex, multi-layered installation made up of several interconnected components, each serving a specialized function within the broader nuclear infrastructure. At its core is a nuclear reactor widely believed to be capable of producing weapons-grade plutonium, a key material used in the construction of nuclear warheads. Surrounding the reactor are reprocessing facilities where spent nuclear fuel can be chemically treated to extract plutonium, along with advanced laboratories dedicated to research, testing, and technical refinement. Over the decades, the site has not remained static. It has undergone continuous upgrades, expansions, and structural reinforcements to maintain operational effectiveness and address concerns about aging infrastructure. Security and survivability have also driven major design choices. Reports from defense analysts suggest that some of the most sensitive operations are located in hardened underground bunkers, shielded by layers of reinforced concrete and earth. This underground positioning is intended to protect critical systems from aerial bombardment or missile strikes, mirroring defensive strategies seen in other fortified nuclear facilities, including those developed by Iran. The secrecy surrounding Dimona is one of its most defining and enduring characteristics, shaping both its strategic importance and the global perception of Israel's security posture. From its earliest development, access to the facility has been tightly restricted, with international inspectors historically granted little or no meaningful oversight. Israel has consistently adhered to a policy known as nuclear ambiguity, deliberately choosing neither confirm nor deny the existence of nuclear weapons. This calculated stance allows Israel to maintain a powerful deterrent, while avoiding the diplomatic and political consequences that might come with openly declaring a nuclear arsenal. Despite this lack of transparency, Dimona has remained a focal point of regional concern and strategic planning. Intelligence agencies and rival states have long identified it as a critical asset, and therefore a potential target. As early as the 1960s, during periods of heightened tension, discussions among adversaries included scenarios for striking the facility. The logic was clear. An attack on Dimona would not only aim to disrupt Israel's perceived nuclear capability, but also deliver profound psychological impact, signaling vulnerability at the core of its national defense. Why is Israel hiding its nuclear capabilities different from what Iran is doing? The difference between why Israel hides its nuclear capabilities and what Iran is doing comes down to strategy, international agreements, and perception of threat. First, Israel follows a policy called nuclear ambiguity, AMAMUT. It neither confirms nor denies having nuclear weapons. This strategy is intentional. By staying silent, Israel creates deterrence without escalation. Its enemies assume it has nuclear weapons, which discourages large-scale attacks. But because Israel never officially declares them, it avoids triggering sanctions or a regional nuclear arms race. Second, Israel is not a signatory of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, NPT, meaning it is not legally bound to declare or open its nuclear program to inspections. In contrast, Iran is a signatory, so it is expected to allow inspections and prove its program is peaceful. This creates a major difference. Iran is judged by international rules that Israel never agreed to. Third, Israel sees its nuclear capability as purely defensive, an insurance policy for survival in a hostile region. Iran, however, is viewed by Israel and some Western countries as potentially seeking nuclear weapons while also expanding regional influence, which raises alarm. In simple terms, Israel hides its nuclear capability to maintain deterrence quietly. Iran's program is controversial because it operates under international rules while being suspected of crossing into weaponization. That difference is why the world treats the two very differently. Cost and timeline of construction of the nuclear facility. Construction of the Dimona nuclear facility began in the late 1950s, during a period of intense geopolitical uncertainty for Israel, with significant technical and engineering assistance from France, particularly in reactor design and infrastructure. The project moved forward under a veil of strict secrecy. At the time, Israel faced multiple regional threats and sought to establish a long-term strategic deterrent that could ensure national survival. Because of the sensitivity of the project, even some of Israel's closest allies, including the United States in the early stages, were not fully informed of its true purpose. The facility was initially presented as a research center, masking its broader strategic intent. Financially, the undertaking placed a heavy burden on Israel's young economy. Initial construction costs were estimated in the hundreds of millions of dollars, a massive investment at the time, which would translate into several billions in today's terms when adjusted for inflation. Funding was carefully allocated and, in some cases, discreetly sourced to avoid drawing international attention. Despite these challenges, the project progressed rapidly, reflecting both the urgency and determination behind Israel's efforts to secure a strategic advantage in an increasingly volatile region. The timeline of the Dimona project reflects a blend of urgency, strategic foresight, and disciplined execution under intense secrecy. Within just a few years of breaking ground in the late 1950s, Israel had successfully completed the core structure of the reactor, an achievement that surprised many observers given the country's limited industrial base at the time. By the early 1960s, the facility had moved into the operational testing phase, with engineers and scientists working to stabilize reactor functions and refine production processes. This rapid progression was not accidental. It was driven by a clear understanding of the regional security environment and the need to establish a credible deterrent as quickly as possible. By the mid-1960s, intelligence assessments widely suggested that Dimona was fully operational and capable of producing fissile material. The speed of construction and activation reflected both geopolitical pressure and a sense of existential urgency. Surrounded by hostile neighbors and facing repeated military threats, Israeli leadership prioritized the project at the highest levels, ensuring that resources, expertise, and political will were aligned to meet an accelerated timeline without compromising secrecy or strategic intent. Over time, the cost of maintaining and upgrading the Dimona facility has significantly exceeded its original construction budget, reflecting both the complexity of nuclear infrastructure and the demands of long-term operation. As the reactor aged, Israel was compelled to invest heavily in reinforcement, modernization, and safety enhancements to ensure continued functionality and reduce potential risks. Nuclear facilities require constant monitoring, replacement of worn components, and upgrades to meet evolving safety standards, all of which contribute to rising costs over decades. In Dimona's case, concerns about aging infrastructure became more pronounced as the facility operated far beyond its initial design lifespan. Reports from analysts and former officials have pointed to structural fatigue in certain components, including the reactor vessel and supporting systems. These concerns prompted a series of technical upgrades aimed at extending the reactor's operational life while maintaining safety and reliability. Additional investments have likely been directed toward improved shielding, cooling systems, and structural reinforcement. While exact figures remain classified, it is widely understood that sustaining Dimona has required billions of dollars over time, underscoring the long-term financial commitment associated with maintaining a strategic nuclear capability. Importance of the Dimona nuclear site. Dimona is widely regarded as the backbone of Israel's strategic deterrence, forming the silent foundation of its national security doctrine. Even though Israel has never officially confirmed possessing nuclear weapons, the widely accepted belief that it maintains such a capability sends a powerful and calculated message to adversaries. This ambiguity creates a unique form of deterrence, one rooted not in open declaration, but in uncertainty. Potential adversaries must assume the worst-case scenario, meaning that any large-scale attack on Israel could trigger a devastating response. This perception alone significantly raises the stakes of conflict, discouraging hostile nations from escalating beyond certain limits. In a region marked by recurring tensions, proxy conflict, and shifting alliances, this psychological balance of power plays a critical role in preventing full-scale wars. Unlike conventional military strength, which can be measured and countered, nuclear deterrence operates in the realm of consequence and fear. It forces strategic restraint, even among rivals with advanced military capabilities. For Israel, Dimona represents not just a facility, but a guarantee, an insurance policy against existential threats. The very existence of this capability, whether confirmed or not, contributes to a fragile but enduring stability, where adversaries are compelled to weigh the catastrophic cost of escalation before taking aggressive action. Beyond its role in military deterrence, the Dimona facility carries deep symbolic significance for Israel, embodying the nation's technological advancement, resilience, and commitment to self-reliance and defense. Built during a period when Israel faced profound regional hostility and uncertainty about its long-term survival, Dimona represents a turning point in the country's strategic thinking, shifting from dependence on external allies to developing independent capabilities. It stands as a testament to Israel's scientific innovation engineering expertise, and ability to execute complex, high-stakes projects under conditions of secrecy and pressure. Symbolically, Dimona reinforces a national narrative of survival against the odds, where preparation and foresight are essential to enduring in a volatile environment. This symbolism extends beyond Israel's borders, shaping how both allies and adversaries perceive the country's strength and resolve. Any successful attack on Dimona would therefore carry consequences far beyond physical damage. It would challenge Israel's strategic credibility, potentially undermining the perception of invulnerability that its deterrence relies upon. Such an event could embolden adversaries, disrupt the psychological balance of power, and force a reevaluation of Israel's long-standing security doctrine. In this sense, Dimona is not only a military asset, but also a powerful symbol of national identity, technological achievement, and strategic independence. Defense mechanisms protecting the site. The Dimona facility is protected by one of the most advanced layer defense systems in the world, designed to counter a wide spectrum of aerial threats. This multi-tiered shield includes systems such as Iron Dome for short-range rockets, David's Sling for medium-range threats, and the Arrow missile system for long-range ballistic missiles. Each system operates at different altitudes and distances, creating overlapping coverage that significantly increases interception success rates. These defenses are supported by rapid detection and response capabilities, allowing incoming threats to be tracked and engaged within seconds. Together, they form a coordinated defensive network intended to prevent missiles, drones, and other projectiles from reaching highly sensitive areas like Dimona. Beyond missile interception systems, Dimona is protected by an extensive network of radar installations, early warning systems, and continuous Air Force patrols. Advanced radar arrays can detect incoming threats from long distances, providing critical time for defensive responses. Israel's intelligence infrastructure plays a vital role, combining satellite monitoring, cyber surveillance, and human intelligence to identify potential threats before they are launched. The facility is also secured by tightly controlled and restricted airspace, where unauthorized aircraft are immediately intercepted. On the ground, multiple layers of fortified security, including checkpoints, surveillance systems, and armed personnel, ensure that unauthorized access is nearly impossible, making Dimona one of the most secure sites in the region. Physical hardening forms another essential layer of protection for the Dimona facility. Many of its most critical components are believed to be located underground or encased in heavily reinforced concrete structures designed to absorb and withstand powerful impacts. These engineering measures are intended to protect sensitive systems from conventional airstrikes, missile attacks, and even certain types of penetrating munitions. Over the years, additional reinforcements have likely been added to address evolving threats and improve resilience. As a result, destroying or severely damaging the facility would require highly specialized weaponry capable of penetrating deep, hardened structures, making Dimona an exceptionally difficult target for any adversary attempting a direct strike. Cyber warfare represents another dimension of modern conflict that could play a supporting role in such an operation. Iran has demonstrated the ability to conduct cyber operations targeting infrastructure, communications, and defense-related systems. In a coordinated scenario, cyber tools could be used to disrupt early warning networks, delay detection, or interfere with command and control systems responsible for coordinating defensive responses. Even temporary disruptions could create confusion or slow reaction times at critical moments. When combined with physical missile or drone attack, cyber interference could reduce the overall effectiveness of layered defense systems. This type of hybrid approach, blending cyber and kinetic operations, reflects the evolving nature of warfare, where battles are fought not only in the air and on the ground, but also within digital networks. Finally, Iran could increase pressure on Israeli defenses by employing a multi-front strategy involving proxy forces and geographically dispersed launch points. Rather than relying on a single direction of attack, strikes could originate from multiple locations across the region, including areas where allied groups operate. This would force defensive systems to divide their attention and resources across several threat vectors simultaneously. The complexity of tracking and intercepting threats from different directions increases the likelihood of small gaps in coverage. Additionally, coordinating attacks across multiple fronts can create uncertainty and strain decision-making processes. Even if the majority of incoming threats are intercepted, the combination of saturation, Advanced technology and multi-directional pressure could create brief windows where a limited number of projectiles reach areas near highly sensitive targets like Dimona. Rebuilding timeline and cost. If the Dimona facility were to suffer significant damage, the process of rebuilding would be lengthy and highly complex, likely spanning several years, potentially between 5 to 10 years depending on the severity of the destruction. Nuclear facilities are not easily repaired or replaced due to precision engineering, specialized materials, and strict safety standards required. Any reconstruction effort would first involve detailed damage assessments, followed by containment and decontamination procedures to ensure that no radioactive hazards remain. Rebuilding underground structures would add another layer of difficulty, as excavation, reinforcement, and shielding must meet exacting standards. Additionally, international scrutiny and safety expectations could slow progress, as any new construction would need to comply with evolving nuclear safety practices and environmental protections. The financial cost of rebuilding a facility like Dimona could reach tens of billions of dollars, reflecting the scale and sensitivity of nuclear infrastructure. Expenses would include not only physical reconstruction but also decontamination efforts, advanced safety systems, upgraded security measures, and replacement of highly specialized equipment. Modernizing the facility during reconstruction would likely drive costs even higher, as newer technologies and stronger defensive systems would be integrated. Beyond the direct financial burden, the strategic consequences could be profound. A damaged or temporarily disabled facility might weaken Israel's perceived deterrence, potentially shifting the regional balance of power. This could force Israel to reassess its broader defense strategy, accelerate alternative capabilities, and invest even more heavily in both conventional and advanced deterrence systems to maintain its security posture. What could be done to prevent continuation of the Israel and Iran war? Preventing the continuation of the Israel-Iran war requires a combination of immediate de-escalation, sustained diplomacy, and long-term security arrangements. First, a ceasefire agreement is the most urgent step. Recent proposals, including a U.S.-backed plan calling for a temporary ceasefire to allow negotiations, show that diplomatic channels still exist, even if both sides currently reject key terms. A short-term halt in hostilities would reduce civilian casualties and create space for dialogue. Second, neutral mediators must play a stronger role. Countries like Pakistan, Egypt, Oman, and Qatar have already attempted to facilitate talks, and historically, outside mediation has been critical in achieving ceasefires in the region. Expanding these efforts under international frameworks, such as the United Nations, could help build trust between both sides. Third, addressing the core issue, nuclear tensions, is essential. Many peace proposals focus on limiting Iran's nuclear program in exchange for sanctions relief and security guarantees. Without resolving this, the conflict is likely to repeat. Fourth, both sides must reduce proxy warfare and regional escalation. Iran's network of allied groups and Israel's multi-front military responses increase the risk of a wider war. Limiting these indirect conflicts would significantly lower tensions. Finally, public and international pressure matters. While domestic support in Israel remains high for continuing the war, global opposition and economic consequences could push leaders toward negotiation. In simple terms, stop the fighting, ceasefire, talk through mediators, resolve nuclear concerns, reduce proxy conflicts, increase global diplomatic pressure. Without these steps, the conflict risks expanding into a much larger regional war. Thank you for watching. Please leave comments, like, share, and subscribe so that you will be the first to be notified of our next video. Coming up,